Hey guys, it's Mike here, and welcome to another edition of Dragon Ball Super reviews and predictions, which I'm going to be talking about Dragon Ball Super episode 40. Well, a lot of stuff happened this episode, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about, so without further ado, let's get started. So this episode pretty much left off in the same spot that it left off last week, and that spot was awesome, and this episode definitely continued suit. And to be honest, just to tell you before I even get really into it, this episode was awesome. And I'm going to explain exactly what happened during the episode, and I'm going to explain to you why I think it was just so great and so much fun. So let's get started with that. So basically it left off in the same spot that it ended last week, with Goku and Hit having that Kamehameha clash, and Goku flying up into the Kamehameha that Hit was inside of, and the both of them clashing, and their power was so great as we see that it shattered the entire barrier, sending out the Kamehameha into space. And people are actually getting sucked up into the power and the force of it and sucked into space. That is until Whis and Vados jumped quickly into action and started to repair everything, holding everyone in place and repairing the barrier. The destruction of everything was pretty clear at that point in time, as we saw rubble everywhere, and it seemed like everyone was looking around to try and see where Goku and Hit were. But Goku appeared on top of the pedestal picture of Beerus, as well as Hit appearing right across from him on top of the one with Champa, both of them seeming to have come out of that clash pretty much unscathed. We then see a flashback of Hit's mind as we see what happened during that clash, as Hit used the Tokitobashi at the very last second to freeze Goku in place, and it's an improved Tokitobashi, of course, because of the fact that Goku was still moving straight through it because he was so fast that not even time could stop him. But Hit was able to use it and utilize it at the very last second to dodge Goku's attack, which of course saved him from losing the fight in general. Goku got back to his feet, but his arm started to twitch and he grabbed it, as the effects of the Kaioken started to take their toll on him at this point in time, just as they always have throughout his fights in the past. But Goku flew up into the air and extended his fist. Hit actually smiled, to the shock of the Supreme Kai from the Universe 6, and just as Old Kai was right about to explain why, Supreme Kai jumped in and stated that it's because Goku has a way of changing people, just as he's changed everyone who he's come across in the past. And this of course echoes the sentiments from the Battle of Gods movie and arc, in which they were saying the same thing about Goku. But Hit obliged Goku and flew up over to him, and they both touched fists just like in a boxing match, where they touch gloves, and both of them jumped back quickly, ready to get into their fighting stances. Goku took his stance first, and Hit did a very cool movement, just like Future Trunks did, in which he was moving his hands around before he got into his fighting stance. But during this face-off, Champa was once again yelling at Hit to try and finish this fight in a cheap and kind of dirty way. Kaba actually stood up and was talking to Champa, was telling him that Hit and Goku have pride, and that's the whole reason why Hit has decided not to take his advice so far. But Champa wasn't having any of it, as he put his finger right in Kaba's face and powered up. But at the last second, Goku and Hit look over and glare at Champa, and Champa jumped back in fear. And once again, Goku and Hit continued their face-off, as Goku started to reflect on the tournament thus far, having a flashback to when he fought Botamo, when Piccolo fought Frost, when Vegeta fought Magetta, and when Vegeta fought Kabe before this. And then the two of them in a classic DBZ moment started to power up, and their power was so big and epic at this point in time that Vados stated that their power alone was almost shattering the new and improved barrier that she just put in place. And with this, Goku and Hit jumped at one another, but Hit activated his even more improved Tokitobashi once again, holding Goku in place. He then rushed over to Goku and started hitting him with a flurry of awesome badass attacks, hitting him over and over again, and then hitting him with a final punch, which you see his energy moving straight through Goku and firing off into the distance, with Goku stunned by all of the damage that he had just received in a split instant. And with this, Goku fell back, and everyone looked on in shock as they thought that Goku had lost the fight. But at the very last moment, Goku once again corrected himself, righted himself, and powered back up into his Kaioken. And that wasn't it. Goku flew at Hit and punched him straight in the face at full force, sending him smashing into the picture of Champa. Hit then fell out of the picture and collapsed into the ring. But Goku, due to the wear and tear of the Kaioken and the wear and tear of this fight, also did the same, following suit and dropping to the ring. And both fighters were completely out of breath, hunched over right across the ring from one another. Goku was the first to stand up, followed by Hit. But strangely, at this point in time, the episode took another twist, as Goku looked straight up to Beerus and he's told him that he wanted Beerus to change the rules and actually remove them for the remainder of this fight, because he wanted where he and Hit would go completely all out during this fight. Everyone looked on in shock, and that was the first half of this episode. So far for the first half of this episode, it was already awesome and action-packed, and honestly, when it got to this point in the episode, I was shocked that it was already halfway through, because this episode really flies by, and you'll know that if you've already seen it, or if you did see it, or if you're going to see it in the future. I mean, you know, I doubt that I'm alone here, so let me know your own thoughts down below, what you thought of the first half of the episode, but, you know, let's continue on into the next half of the episode. Goku continued to explain to them how he wanted the rules removed, and then we see a flashback of Universe 6's Supreme Kai, as we flash back to after Hit had defeated Vegeta, and we see that he's questioning the referee and how he can go about getting Vegeta to submit, or if killing is actually against the rules. But just as Goku and Hit were talking about the idea and facing off once again, we see Champa was laughing up in the air and praising Goku's bravery against Hit in this fight. And we see that Champa is praising Goku's quote-unquote bravery for asking to remove such rules. However, Beerus flies over to him and the two of them begin to argue because he doesn't want the rules removed. Hit and Goku laugh and talk to one another as Hit says that they're both just pawns in Beerus and Champa's game. But then Goku says, only for now. But shockingly, out of nowhere, Goku actually walks to the edge of the ring and jumps out of bounds, getting himself disqualified. As a result, Hit is declared the winner of their fight, and then Goku comes back into the ring and bows to Hit as a sign of respect. So right away, we have the climax of this fight in a shocking way that no one really saw coming. Goku actually eliminated himself, you know, which is surprising to me because I did predict that I thought Goku was going to lose. However, I didn't expect Goku to actually walk outside the ring and eliminate himself because of the fact that I assumed that maybe the Kaioken would wear his body down to the point where Hit would beat him, or Hit's, you know, techniques would just be enough to beat him in the end, or maybe both of them would, you know, clash at one another, going completely all out to the point where they're both so exhausted that Goku falls down onto the ground, you know, similar to the ending of Goku versus Jackie Chun or Master Roshi, in which Master Roshi is the one who's able to stand up and stay on his feet and say that he is the winner, as opposed to, you know, Goku falling back down because he's unable to do so. So this was definitely a really interesting twist that was really shocking, and it's something that I really liked because it led to what happened next. But before that, Goku gave Hit the thumbs up and powered down out of his blue form, and we see the effects of the Kaioken, the negative effects of it on Goku's body, as his muscles start to strain to ridiculous amounts, and he collapses onto the ground in pain. Piccolo comes down to help Goku out, and Hit leaves, walking over to take his place for the next coming fight. As we see, it's Hit versus Menaka. Goku gets back in his chair next to Vegeta and says that he's not going to use the Kaioken for a while considering how much damage it did to his body, and Beerus comes over to him absolutely furious because of the fact that Beerus believes that he has lost them the entire fight. Of course, Goku doesn't realize that Menaka is actually weak, so Goku suggests that Menaka will be able to win. And Whis, of course, during this moment, because he knows that Menaka really is weak, starts to egg on Beerus, which is a pretty funny scene. But then we see Menaka standing on the edge of the floating platform, completely afraid and completely nervous and actually shaking. You see his teeth chattering, and he looks down at Hit, who stares right into his eyes, and you can see the horror and terror in Menaka's eyes. His legs and his entire body are completely shaking during this point in time, but we see that Goku is cheering him on because Goku thinks he really is powerful, and he's telling him that he could definitely beat Hit. So Menaka gulps, jumps into the air, does a kind of graceful looking flip, but then smashes down into the ring in a funny moment, and where he's actually embedded head first, like an arrow or a sword thrown down into the ground. And Goku is still cheering him on all the way as Beerus face palms. Menaka makes his way over to Hit, and we see Hit looking at him, and it seems like Hit can see right through him. Menaka makes his way over to Hit and bows down to him as a sign of respect before their fight, sweating and trembling and drooling in fear. But it seems like Hit can see straight through him, and he knows that he is weak. The fight begins, and Menaka runs over, rushes towards Hit, and punches him straight in the leg. But funny enough, it does absolutely nothing at all. Menaka looks up in confusion, and then suddenly out of nowhere, Hit starts to yell as if he'd been hit incredibly hard, flies backwards, smashes into the barrier, and then drops to the ground, losing, with Menaka shown being the winner. We then see Menaka and everyone else in the arena looking on in shock, as Menaka is declared the winner of the tournament. Menaka looks down to his fist completely confused, thinking that perhaps he actually did have the strength to defeat Hit after all. So basically, this was the conclusion of that fight in general, and that's something that I pretty much wanted to see the entire time. That's really what I was hoping would happen the entire time, and the fact that they really did it made me really happy and really excited, you know, about what I was seeing. The second that I saw Goku step out of the ring, I knew that this is probably where they were going to go with it, and they really ended up delivering on it. I predicted that this would happen a little while back, although I didn't know for sure if Menaka really was going to be weak after all, but they really decided to go with the whole Mr. Satan route. So basically with Menaka playing Mr. Satan and Hit being the 18 counterpart, because of the fact that, if you'll remember, during the tournament in the Boo Saga, Mr. Satan punched 18 as hard as he could in the face, but it did nothing because of the fact that he's a normal human being and she's, Android 18. And the same thing happened in this case with Menaka punching Hit right as hard as he could in the leg. However, Menaka wasn't in on the bit during this time. He's not going to pay Hit any ransom as far as we know, and Hit just threw himself out of the ring, probably because he realized that the true fight in the tournament was over, and he saw no real reason to still be involved. So I really like that, and I'm happy that they didn't go the predictable route of Goku winning in the end, although it does kind of make me question whether or not Goku even could have defeated Hit, considering what we saw. I mean, both of them seemed to be evenly matched during that fight, even with Goku's 10 times Kaioken, but considering how his body gave out so quickly after he asked Beerus and Champa to change the rules, it makes me wonder if Goku even could have won that fight in the first place, and if he could have, maybe it could have been a draw, and maybe both of them would have been knocked out simultaneously. In either case, I really like the conclusion of this tournament in terms of the fights, and I really enjoyed that, but there was more to come after that. Goku flew over and talked to the King of the Galaxy and thanked him for letting him in on what Hit's Toki Tobashi technique was. He raised one of the King's tentacles into the air and was shaking it like it was his hand, and then strangely we see that Jocko is looking on in complete horror at what he's seeing, and then Jocko explains that that's actually not the King's hand, but it's really his genitals. And the King actually blushes as he acknowledges this. But it wasn't all fun and games, as Hit flew up over to the platform where Team Universe 6 was and told Champa he no longer desired the cube and he simply wanted to be taken back to his home. But Champa wasn't having any of that, and he was really pissed at what he was seeing, and he powered up, ready to kill all of his own team members for their failure. Goku wanted to intervene, but Beerus told him not to, because Universe 6 is under Champa's rule, and he has complete control of whatever he can do in that universe, and if he wants to kill his own teammates, then Goku should not interfere, and neither would Beerus. But suddenly Whis and Vados alerted the gods of destruction to something going on down below in the ring, and they both looked on in complete shock, as we saw two identical tall, slender-looking guards. And then below them, we saw someone who I just revealed earlier today in a video talking about the new characters that were being introduced in Dragon Ball Super. The Lord of all things, as he's known, Zeno, was standing right in the middle of the ring. But what did he want? That's something that's going to be interesting to find out. So overall, I really liked this episode. I thought it was great, and I can't really say anything really negative about it overall. I mean, every single negative that I had with the previous episodes, and a lot of people, who watch this right now probably watched my previous review from a couple weeks ago, in which I was pretty unhappy with the way that, everything was building up to seemingly give Goku the win, but seemingly every single issue I had been addressed in these past two episodes and fixed, so I no longer really had any issues with this. I feel like, the bad writing in so many ways, there still is a little bit of issues with that, but overall they've mostly addressed them, and I don't really have any problems with this. I'm really happy, with how it turned out. I wanted Menaka to basically win the tournament, and he did. He's basically now the Mr. Satan of Universe 7, like the actual universe, whereas Mr. Satan is just the Mr. Satan of Earth, I guess, and, everything turned out the way I really wanted to, and now it seems like we're already jumping straight into the next arc by seeing this new hierarchy of gods, and perhaps this guy being the god of all gods, or the god of all things. Maybe he's the guy who created everything. Maybe he is, Toriyama, in Dragon Ball Super, no longer Toribot, but rather he is basically the one above all, or the presence, for comic book fans, or he could just be one of four. It's gonna be really interesting for them to explain to us, perhaps, next week what this is going to be about. But talking about next week, let's get into my predictions, and it seems like a lot of stuff is going to happen there. As we see, Goku being Goku walks right up to Zeno and starts talking to him, as Champa and Beerus look on in shock of what they're seeing. But then, we see something else. We see galaxies reflected in this giant golden body. The giant golden body of a dragon. Zarama, the dragon god himself. and apparently in this next episode, they're going to wish for the god of all dragons, the most powerful Shenron of all, to come forward to grant their wish. And what Goku is saying during that point of time, as translated by Herm, states, "Hey, this is Goku. Who the heck is that runt? Lord Beerus and the others sure seem nervous around him, but he doesn't look all that strong. Well, whatever. We'd better think of what wish we want to make with the Super Dragon Balls. Next time on Dragon Ball Super, come forth, Dragon of the Gods, and grant my wish pretty please." Don't miss it. So I honestly don't even know what to predict for the next coming episode other than what we've been shown. Goku is going to meet this god of all gods, and they're going to bring forth the Super Dragon Ball. For predictions, I guess I could say that I think that the planet that they were fighting on in the tournament the entire time was the 7th Super Dragon Ball, because they went out of their way to talk about how it's the same size as the other Super Dragon Balls, exactly even. So I feel like somehow, perhaps Vados knew about this, and basically they're going to be using that so that they can wish on something of the dragon. I have no idea what they're going to wish for, but from some outside information we've heard, it seems like this god stepped forward and is suggesting them to make a specific wish. So it's going to be really interesting to see what in fact this guy actually wants them to wish for, because what could he possibly want someone to wish for that he couldn't even do himself? But overall, this has been another edition of Dragon Ball Super review and predictions, in which I was talking about episode 40. Let me know your own thoughts down below. Do you agree with me or do you disagree? Did you like this episode as much as I did? I expect you probably did, but if you didn't, I'd like to know why. Let me know down below. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And as I always say, stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Do it now. What do you wait?
Do it now, you puny man. Who cares about the universe 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
Blah.
I'm from the universe of biceps. No.